The West Midlands is a remarkable region. Birmingham is a remarkable city. It was the birthplace of local government, it was the birthplace of municipal enterprise, it was the great industrial heartland of Britain, but also powerful, vibrant communities. And what we're seeing now is all of that coming together with people resisting what's happening and fighting back.
Birmingham City Council is quite an amazing organisation. People don't really realise what council workers do. I think sometimes they think that we sit in offices and we're kind of public servants. No, we're not. Half the workforce in Birmingham City Council are manual workers. They are people that work every day out in the community providing a whole range of services in museums and in libraries and in parks and in nurseries looking after our children. We have people that do just about everything, and so they're really important to our community. They glue our community together.
If you look at the West Midlands economy, over half of it is accounted for by manufacturing, retail, construction, business services. Those were the sectors that were most impacted by the recession, which is why we took a really big hit in the West Midlands. Go back to the Industrial Revolution, Birmingham was seen as the workshop of the world. There were 1,000 trades in Birmingham. There's a kind of great creativity, ideas were exchanged from different sectors.
Originally I'm from Walsall, which is one of the big towns in what's called the Black Country. In the West Midlands. This area was known as a manufacturing heartland of the UK, and really this area was the area that really helped to drive the British economy for hundreds of years.
From the mid-1960s through to the start of the 80s, there were around 370,000 manufacturing job losses in the West Midlands, which had a profound impact on the economy here. We then went into the 1980s recession, further loss of manufacturing jobs. We've never really recovered from that. We've got a very long-term structural problem in the West Midlands in terms of poor investment, poor productivity growth, a poor track record on research and development. We've had to diversify the economy. So we've seen, for example, in Birmingham, the growth in the service sector. But a big part of that as well was the creation of public sector jobs, especially from 2000 onwards, with investment by the government in health and education and in other public services. And that was a key area, actually, of generating jobs in Birmingham.
One of the things that all of that kind of industrial revolution did was that it created community. We helped to build a whole kind of ethos about the importance of local government and about the state providing support for working class people.
If you look back in history, the NHS was formed just after the Second World War when the country's debts dwarfed the current debts, and on the back of that the country built the NHS. It has been absolutely the shining crown jewel of public service since. There isn't anybody in this country that doesn't value it.
Right now, breaking news, crisis on Wall Street.
Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley have effectively given up their investment bank status.
Every market open is in the red.
HBOS shares plunged and investors began withdrawing their savings.
Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. The hunt is now on which banks have been exposed to Lehman.
We're still trying to untangle what actually happened in the financial crisis from 2008 onwards. I think a whole series of factors came together. Partly it was financial deregulation, both in the US and in the UK. Previously, if you went to the bank, when I first went to the bank many years ago to get my mortgage, I begged the bank manager, I got a fairly small mortgage, had to put down a big deposit. That mortgage stayed with the bank. Now the banks, in their cleverness, what they did to be able to lend to more and more risky people was starting to syndicate that debt. So they would salami slice those mortgages into millions of little pieces. And we got to the point where banks didn't know which other banks had got the bad debt and who were exposed. So they stopped lending to each other. And that's when the credit crisis came in. Banks stopped lending to each other and they stopped lending to the kind of the real world.
And on Monday, Britain's government announced a second multi-billion-pound bailout for its banks. Chancellor Alistair Darling said it was essential to get banks lending again.
When this all unfolded, people said, well, this is a financial crisis. It's going to have most impact on, say, the City of London, because that's where the financial base is. It didn't, actually.
The West Midlands was the hardest hit by the recession, and we were starting from a base of being pretty low anyway because of that 30 years of economic decline. And the worst thing about all of this is we're the ones who had to pay the money to bail out the banks, and the people who are expected to pay the price, private sector workers who lost their jobs in their hundreds of thousands in this region, and now public sector workers who are told you have to pay the price.
In every area where we make savings, we must leave no stone unturned in our search for waste, and we must deliver changes necessary to make our public services fit for the modern age. It is a hard road, but it leads to a better future.
I think most recent analysis has suggested that the cuts are pretty regressive, that it will be the poorest in society that will be affected by them. I think, for example, the government could have been much more progressive in terms of having more of a tax on the banking system. They could, I think, pay more than £2.5 billion a year to actually help address some of the damage that they'd caused through their very risky behaviour. And the cuts that are coming through in terms of public services, the danger is that they affect the most vulnerable in society who are dependent on public services.
The Welfare Benefits Service has started off with just one officer and has now got 40 staff. So our officers are responsible for going out and in ensuring that all these vulnerable people and the elderly people are in receipt of the correct benefits so they can have a decent living standard. The spending cuts, I think, are going to affect the vulnerable people of Staffordshire. And when you talk about vulnerable people, you're talking about people with mental health, the learning difficulties. These people will be left more or less to fend for themselves, I feel, and are more susceptible for being financial abuse, vulnerability. I think they'll just slip through the net and be the forgotten people.
Really, it's been the last sort of 18 months, maybe 2 years, that we've seen lots of changes because of cuts to council budgets, and our services have started to disappear, and we've been having big campaigns to try and save them. I started work as a day centre officer in a day centre for adults with learning disabilities. Did that for 19 years, and then last year we lost the battle to save my day centre. It was closed by the council, and the people that use the service will move to other services.
And people are very, very concerned about their jobs and the services that we all provide. I'll hand you over to Caroline Johnson, who's going to present the first motion.
The huge proposed cuts to the public sector are not just about the economy. They're about changing the face of our public services forever.
We've produced newsletters, we've held meetings in hundreds of workplaces with our members, and they've told us how angry they are about this, but they've also told us how this would devastate their lives, absolutely devastate their lives. We will have people losing their homes because of these proposals.
I remember the Thatcher years, and I think people have short memories. You have to get out and go on these marches. I'm not afraid to say it, but I support Unison.
We had over 3,500 of our members come together, and they voted unanimously to strike against the proposals. We're going to fight the council all the way. We're not going to allow them to do this to our members, and our members are very determined.
All those in favour of the motion, please show.